U.S. President Joe Biden has officially announced his bid to run for a second term.
He is the oldest ever U.S. president at 80, and his decision sets the stage for a potential repeat of the Biden-Trump showdown in next year's presidential poll. In a video announcing his candidacy, Mr. Biden called on voters to defend democracy. He said he was running to counter so-called MAGA extremists for the soul of America.
His likely Republican rival has already shot back. Former President Donald Trump called Mr. Biden the worst U.S. president and accused him of taking America to the brink of World War III. For more on Mr. Biden's re-election bid, let's speak now with John Miles Coleman. He's with the Center for Politics at the University of Virginia. John, with a 3-minute clip, Mr. Biden officially threw his hat into the ring. What did you make of how he framed next year's contest? And how do you think his message, "Let's finish this," will resonate with the Americans this time around?
Sure. So, if you watch his video, he really leans into a lot of the same themes that the Democrats ran on last year. And it was, a better than expected midterm for them. Joe Biden is not popular, but the Republicans are sort of seen as extreme, at least Donald Trump's faction of the Republican Party, leaning into these ideas of freedom, whether that be reproductive freedom or, freedom for same-sex marriage, those types of issues. So it's something that I'm really reminded of is something that Biden will say often, and I think this could sum up the whole election. He says, well, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. There are a lot of Americans who, maybe aren't too jazzed up about Joe Biden, especially considering his age. But are they really going to go back over to Donald Trump? That's going to be the key question in this election.
Now, Biden described himself as a bridge to the next generation during his 2020 campaign, leading some to think he may just serve a one term, but he doesn't seem ready to hand over the reins just yet. Why not?
Yeah, well, you have to remember that this is a man who got elected to the Senate at age 29. He's been running for president more or less his whole life. He finally gets it on his third try in 2020. Is he really going to give it up after one term? So, I think, that bridge aspect maybe came in when he picked Vice President Harris, who was a bit younger. So it's you have to remember that he's been running for president for, basically as long as we've all been alive, more or less.
Yeah, John. And, as he confronts persistent questions about his age, how do you expect him to handle this age issue? Do you think we'll see more of him out there engaged in retail politics, large speaking events, for example?
Yes, I think what may contribute to that as well is, compared to 4 years ago, we're more or less out of the COVID pandemic. So Joe Biden, is a very strong retail politician. We got a taste of that, last year when Florida was hit by a hurricane. During the recovery process, you would see Biden and Governor Ron DeSantis going to, rural parts of Florida that lean Republican. Biden would be hugging up on everyone, and Ron DeSantis would be over by himself. So Biden is a very strong retail politician. I think he does best, when he speaks to empathy, when he talks about his family struggles. So, he definitely has some liability, specifically his age, but he's not going to be a pushover for the Republicans either.
And do you see him facing any challenge from within the Democratic Party? In the last election, it was quite an open field until they all decided to rally behind him. Are there any credible challenges this time around?
I wouldn't say he's getting any credible challengers this time. There are a few at the fringe, but I wouldn't expect there to be a primary debate or anything like that. I think what helps Joe Biden is the Democrats had a decently good midterm. So I think there's a certain sense of satisfaction with Biden despite his age. Depending on how Donald Trump does on the Republican side, where he's a decent favorite as a non-incumbent, this primary season coming up could be one of the more boring primary seasons in American politics, where both with both Trump and Biden being overwhelming favorites on their side. Although it's almost a year until the first primaries, but that's kind of what it's looking like now.
Now, John, we understand that Republicans in Congress have been investigating the financial dealings of Biden's family, including his son, Hunter Biden. So far, no one's been charged with any crime, but if anything damaging were to be uncovered, what could be the potential impact on Biden? And conversely, what are the risks for GOP if no evidence is found?
Yeah, I mean, the Hunter Biden thing to me is okay. I can see that the Democrats saying, okay, well, Donald Trump's family has been involved in some pretty shady stuff as well. So I can see it amounting to sort of a wash. I think in a sense that the Republican Congress may be, somewhat of a foil for Joe Biden. Back in 1948, one of the reasons Harry Truman got reelected as a big underdog in his election, he was a Democrat. In the 1946 elections, the American voters gave him a Republican Congress. He ran against what he called a do-nothing Congress. So I can see Biden running against Republican Congress in 2024. Okay, if you elect Trump, these are the guys who are going to be in charge. They're launching all these odd investigations. Meanwhile, they can't even come up with a serious proposal to avoid a default. So it could work in his favor in a sense like that.
Many things to watch out for. Thanks, John, for your thoughts today. John Miles Coleman from the University of Virginia.